Update. Thinking if I, 36 male, should leave my wife, 36 female, because she openly resents our son, 7. Original story. Neither of us were sure about having kids. We were married 5 years before finding out she was pregnant. Both nervous as hell, but in the end, she wanted to try having the baby, and I agreed. It was hard at first. Parenthood is in general, but I love my son. He's wonderful, smart, energetic, and warms my heart. My wife, for the most part, was great with him, but occasionally we both would get burned out and find some time to have date nights or individual free time. Over a year ago before lockdown, my wife started becoming very irritated over anything he'd do. Accidentally spill a little apple juice on the counter? She'd yell at him like if he'd just destroyed a family heirloom. It was something that happened every now and then, but we'd talk about it, and she would apologize to him. Pandemic was really rough. We both had our jobs, just were working from home and our son wasn't in school. At first, I thought the frustration came from being cooped up at home and not being able to go out. But my son's been going to school again for months, and we're all back to going out. Yet, things haven't improved. Finally had to sit down with my wife, because no matter what mood she's in, she could be happy and smiling. But when my son comes in, her mood shifts, and I notice it more now. My wife told me that for the longest time, she's resented having our son. Motherhood isn't what she thought it was going to be, and missed it only being the two of us. She didn't expect her life to be this way with a child, and she regrets having him at all. It was a hard conversation to have, but one we really needed to. I've talked to her about getting therapy, individual, couples, or both, whatever it takes. She's refused because she claims she doesn't need help. We have tried going on more date nights, being a couple if she feels like we're not getting enough of that. Having her spend some more one-on-one time with him, which she doesn't want to do. It doesn't matter. As soon as we get home and in our son's presence, she's more serious. I asked her once, does she love him? And my wife says that she does, just doesn't like him. That was painful. I want to work on this with her and get therapy, but she doesn't want to. What's pushing me to want to leave is because my son is starting to pick up on this. No 7-year-old kid should be asking why mom's always mad at him. I love my wife, but I'm scared of him growing up with someone who doesn't like him. Is this really it? Is the next best thing to leave, or is there any way to get her to understand I can't have our son living like this? Now for the top advice before reading the update. I grew up with a mother who loved me but didn't like me. She messed me up so hardcore. I'd let your wife know that if she isn't in therapy and making progress immediately, you'll be all done. Your kiddo comes first. I'm very sorry about your mother. That's exactly what I want to avoid with my son. He doesn't deserve any of this. I really hope another talk, this time with the mention of divorce if nothing improves, will get her to understand how serious I am this time. I also grew up with this. It also prompted me to spend most of my 20s in horrible relationships. And I also don't speak to the parent who loved me but didn't like me now, and haven't in years. You see, it seemed okay for me to be in relationships with partners who treated me with contempt, disgust, even sadism, because they also said they loved me, but just couldn't stand me because of X, Y, and Z. And to me, that's what love was. Being with someone who loved me but didn't like me, even despised me. And my job was to try everything to make my obviously defective self good enough to finally make them happy and stop mistreating me. Spoiler alert, that never works with these people, like your wife. Their target is never good enough, because that's the game. Love doesn't justify psychologically destroying your child in a way that no therapist may ever be able to fix. Her love is pretty worthless in my view. It even creates a type of confusion that is extremely damaging. For anyone reading this and stuck in a relationship right now where someone is telling you they love you but don't like you, don't keep subjecting yourself to such treatment and hope to be good enough one day. Stick your middle fingers up and walk away immediately if you ever hear that phrase. Only accept relationships with people who like, respect, and value you naturally for the person that you are. Don't accept less from people, friends, family, partners. Your wife absolutely needs therapy. It sounds like she's in a very toxic place and taking out your frustration on your son. If she isn't willing to get the help she needs, you need to protect your son and leave. He is the innocent one in all this, and even if he's not showing it yet, this could create all kinds of trauma for him feeling that kind of rejection. That's my main concern too. I don't want this impacting him in a negative way. and can't play peacemaker every time she gets mad at him over any little thing, or just doesn't interact with him as much. All this time, I had hoped things would improve, and sadly that hasn't been the case. And now for the update. Well, it's been a hard few days, but it happened. Didn't want it to, but it needed to. I took my son out of there. Trying to talk with my wife about this a couple days after posting this got us nowhere. Even if therapy wasn't going to be the miracle that makes her want to be a mother to our son, I told her it wouldn't hurt to have somewhere to talk about her feelings. Get to the core of why she feels this way, and if maybe there's a way to work on it so that it wouldn't have a deep impact on how she is with him. She refused. And I asked her, does she ever think it will get better? As in, does my wife believe she could see herself caring for him and being what he needs at all in the future? The answer wasn't going to determine if I left or not, but that's something I just wanted to know for myself. She said no. When I told her that it's not going to work out between us because his well-being comes first, she begged me to stay. All these promises of not treating him negatively and putting on a face for him, but still will not do therapy at all because she doesn't need help. Then all of a sudden, she gets angry and told me to get out, that if I only just want to be with my son. It was heartbreaking. We ended up leaving since she didn't want to leave the apartment. He was still half asleep when we left, so all I've told him so far is we're just taking a short vacation. He believes it since we're staying at a hotel for now, but he does keep asking about her. I'm trying my best to keep it together for him, but my heart's still broken though. I hate that it had to end like this. But many of you were right, and I know this too. He had to come first, and this was already messing him up. I know it was the right choice. Feels like my life just came to a hard stop, and I'm just trying to get my bearings still. She hasn't contacted me since we left. My family's aware of what's happening though, so I'm glad to have their support. My sister offered to have my son spend a weekend with them so he could be with his cousins. Since he is not here right now, I decided to use some of my free time to type this up. Thank you for being the push I needed to do something. Deep down, I know it was what needed to be done. Guess just needed it to be said. Many of us grew up with parents who never should have had kids. It's amazing what you are doing for your son. You have changed the course of his life for the better. I wish you both all the best. I wish it didn't have to happen. That's life, I guess. But I needed to do better for him. He didn't deserve any of that. Thank you for making this choice. Often, the loving parents will remain because they are scared/think it's best. It's a heartbreaking choice, but it's the right one for everyone involved. Please don't forget that both you and your son will need therapy. Don't let yourself drag this with you for the years to come. You both deserve better. After having our son, his mother started getting really horrible, and we started to fight constantly. She finally admitted to me that she didn't want to be a mom and didn't want to be tied down into a relationship with me either. For context, I had broken up with her a couple of days before she found out she was pregnant, and she talked me back into our relationship and into keeping the baby. So her not wanting to be a mom or be in a relationship were news to me. Fast forward 12 years later, and we live on opposite sides of the country. Her with her new husband on the East Coast and me and my son on the West Coast. She calls him on FaceTime every night and comes to visit for a couple of weeks 2 or 3 times a year. It turned out to be the best thing for all of us. Her and I become friends, and she doesn't fight me on things related to our son, and she has a good relationship with our boy, gets to love her unconditionally from a distance, without all of her in-your-face negative complications. Years ago, when my family suddenly fell apart, I thought the world was ending, but now I realized it was the best thing for everyone, including my son. Stay strong, put your son first, don't talk bad about his mother, and have faith. Everything will work out in the end, I promise. Thank you. I'm so glad you guys were able to get to a better place. That's all I want for my son. This gives me some hope. Even if things don't change with her, I know it was the right move for my son. Appreciate you sharing this. You're doing the right thing. One day your boy will understand what you did for him, and a positive example you've set will shape him, the people he meets, the life he lives, and the lives of his children after him. Good luck, brother. This has been the hardest week of my life. Most nights, I've stayed up crying. Aside from my son, this is the only thing that truly brought a smile to my face. So thank you very much for your lovely comment. I've got tears in my eyes, but for a different reason now. Next story. I kicked my brother and his family out and cut them off after they called my son a retard. I'm a widow, but before my husband passed, we adopted a baby boy. Our son Jacob, 4 male, was diagnosed with ASD and global development delay last year. It was hard for me being a single mother, but my profession as a speech-language therapist helped a lot in dealing with my son's tantrums. He is nonverbal, so it takes a lot of patience and understanding. My brother Abe, 30 male, and his family, and 29 female, Sue 10 female, became homeless earlier this year. I have offered my home to them as I have an 8-bedroom house that I inherited from my husband's family. Everything seemed okay at home. Jacob goes to kindergarten 4 days a week, then on Fridays I go with him to therapy. My brother and his wife stay at home most of the time. They said they're looking for a job. It's been a while now, but I don't mind as I love my brother and I have more than enough to help them. The problem started when my niece keeps teasing Jacob. She would take his toys and iPad, ending in him throwing tantrums and being really upset. I've talked to my brother and aunt about it, and they said it's just a harmless play between cousins. What made me angry was when Sue entered Jacob's room. I've told her many times before that Jacob doesn't like anyone going to his room. She took my son's scoreboard, visual aid to help with communication, and played with it. I heard my son screaming and crying while banging his head on the wall. I told off Sue, and my brother and I got into an argument. I told him his daughter's picking on Jacob isn't acceptable, and that he needs to discipline his daughter. That's when my brother said that we wouldn't have been in this problem if I had returned that retard to the orphanage. I got so angry, told him to leave my house and I don't want to ever see him again. They left my house later that day, and I heard from a friend that they now live in a motel, emergency housing. I also stopped giving them money. Our parents said I should just forgive my brother and continue helping him as we are family, but I could never forgive what he said. Am I taking this too far? Now for the top comments. No, you are not. You should not forgive your brother at all. He isn't wrong here. If he wants forgiveness, he should be begging for you to forgive him. Exactly. Why isn't he trying to say sorry? Seriously, I can understand a slip of the tongue in the heat of the moment, but this sounds like a pattern of behavior that is only going to get worse if they can't figure out how to be responsible. You need to protect your son. Nobody else will, apparently. Your brother and his wife made choices in parenting that landed them in that hotel. They are homeless. A family member takes them in off the street, and they antagonize their host. They then torment the host's special needs child and insult him to his mother's face. This isn't very smart behavior in itself. Your parents are pressuring you to cave into this mistreatment because then the brother isn't their problem. It's the stupidest thing I've read in a long while. Biting the hand that feeds you doesn't even cover it. Wow. Last story is titled, My 24 female sister, 30, hid her pregnancy from me so that I could move into a house she could only afford if I was renting. Now that I want to move out, some friends are telling me I shouldn't as she can't afford to be on her own. I feel stuck. I moved in with my sister almost 4 years ago. She took me in when I had nowhere else to go, and I had been forever grateful. I live with my sister, her husband, and 4 children. Although it's a lot of us, I've always had my own room, and I paid $600 for it. Unfortunately, they're not very financially stable, so my rent money goes a long way for them. The apartments we live in weren't great, but there wasn't much to complain about. Around April of this year, she suddenly told me the apartment management had told her the contract wasn't getting renewed, and that it ended in May. That was in less than a month, so I didn't have time to find roommates or a new place. I was stressing. The next day, though, she told me she had seen a house already. More space, big backyard, and that I could get my own bathroom, plus a parking garage. My rent would be $800 now, but with all that included, plus since the kids would have their own room, I could use the kitchen a lot more. I said yes, as it's not like I had any other options. Fast forward to now. That was all a lie. I pay $800, which is almost my whole check, and my bathroom is everyone's bathroom. She has a bathroom in her room, but says she likes mine better as it has a tub and a bigger sink and space. She showers all the kids plus the dog there, and my bathroom is always dirty. The parking garage she took because they had 2 cars, and it's easier on them to use both garages. I've had it. I don't want to move out. Then yesterday morning, I woke up to the kids telling me they have a new baby sister. I was confused until my brother-in-law came into the kitchen and told me my sister had given birth to a baby girl and showed me pictures. My sister had been pregnant this whole time and didn't even tell me. She's a bit on the chunky side, so it wasn't noticeable at all. I also work all day and go to school, so I never noticed any pregnancy symptoms. I am so angry as I realize now that she tricked me into moving. She kept her pregnancy as a secret because she knew I wouldn't want to move with her. 5 kids now. 5 damn kids when they aren't financially stable. I want to move out, but I know without my $800, they can't afford a place. They'd have to find a place elsewhere and pay for something they can't afford. I feel stuck. I don't want to live here anymore. I come home tired every day from work to screaming children, and my sister constantly going off on the kids. Some of my friends have said it's not that big of a deal, and I should just stay since I'm rarely ever home. And I should stay since I know they can't afford anything without me. But I'm angry. $800 is so much money for a room. It's too much money for everything I put up with. And the fact that she hid her pregnancy and tricked me into moving here just for her own benefit is crazy. Who does that? Surprise, I've been pregnant this whole 9 months? She's an adult with a husband. She's not your responsibility. To hell with folks telling you to stay. It's easy to promote when they aren't living in it. Get out ASAP and never look back, as far as regret. Yes, they helped you out, but now it's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. Get out in the world and not be a burden to her family. See what I did there? I've given you a few talking points when you break the news to her and your brother-in-law. Also a rebuttal to folks who want you to stay because they need your income. Move out and take care of yourself. You're not responsible for your sister or her children. She should not have had 5 kids if she and her husband can't provide for them. I agree that she tricked you and takes advantage of you by constantly using your bathroom and refusing to share the garage. For your own happiness, move out. It might strain or damage your relationship with her, but are you prepared to live like this forever just to appease her? It's going to be difficult no matter what you choose, but know that your chances of living your life happily are probably higher if you put yourself first. I wish you luck.